Hello, today I'm going to be reviewing the Sigma 10 to 20 millimeter HSM DC f4 to 5.6 lens. Currently, right now, the 10 to 20 millimeter Sigma lens is the widest lens for a DX format digital SLR camera, or just a camera with a small sensor that gives it the 1.5 crop factor. This lens is the widest out right now. The lens I'm reviewing is for a Nikon mount, so this review still will apply to Canon users since it's the same lens. It's just the examples will be shown with Nikon cameras. Anyway, I'm going to be comparing the lens right now to the 18 to 55 Nikon kit lens, so you can get a general size comparison. They are roughly about the same size, I would say. In terms of height, the Sigma lens weighs about twice the weight of the Nikon, so it's a lot heavier, a lot better constructed. It's got a lot of metal parts inside of it. The outside, it's a lot better built versus the Nikon kit lens, which is plastic. It's basically the whole thing's plastic. Has a plastic mount on it, but the Sigma one has metal. It takes 77 millimeter filters, which means it's got a huge front element. So the filter sizes are a big difference. This takes 52 millimeter size filters. So your filters are going to be a lot more expensive, and basically that's just so I can get the widest view possible. As you can see, it has a very smooth zoom ring and a very smooth manual focus ring. One thing the Nikon mount version of this lens does not have is an autofocus to manual focus switch on the side, or basically that, because I know the Canon and the Sigma mount do, but from what I've seen, the Nikon version does not have that. So you have to use the on-camera's auto to manual focus change to manually focus this lens. But like I said, this is an HSM lens, which means hypersonic motor. This is the equivalent to Nikon's AFS, which is autofocus silent wave motor, and that basically means there is a motor inside of the lens. This allows for fast, quiet autofocus. It also allows for autofocus on cameras that do not have built-in motors, such as the D40, D40X, or D60. So this is a really good lens for those cameras. The focusing on this lens is very quiet, so right now I will show you how quiet this autofocus is by putting this lens on my D40X, and this is pretty good focus terms wise. If you just listen, it's pretty quick right there. It just went from 0 to infinity. So that was pretty quiet, not too loud or noticeable. I can also, to compare that, I'll show you what the focus sounds like on a AF lens without a motor. This is the 50mm f1.8 on my D200, and it's still pretty quick on here, but it's pretty loud too, and sometimes to some photographers that can be pretty annoying to hear that zoom in focus ring. So like I said, the Sigma is a very quiet and fast lens. As I mentioned before, it is a DC lens, which means it is built for the crop factor. It's the same thing as DX for Nikon. It's made for smaller size sensors, so it probably doesn't work that well on a film camera or a full frame camera. But 10 to 20 millimeters, it is a pretty good zoom range. It's a 2x zoom range. At 10 millimeters, its fastest is f4, which is pretty good for wide angle, and all the way zoomed up to 20, its fastest is 5.6. So anyway, this lens does have a pretty good bit of distortion. Now, being at 10 millimeters, you have to expect distortion. That is the widest angle for a DX format camera. So 10 millimeters, you're going to see a lot of distortion. Now, it's not that bad of a distortion. It's easily correctable with software on your computer, and it's a pretty good looking distortion. I actually like the distortion of it when using it for you know, just landscapes and people and stuff. The lens works out very well. Also, I will show you some shots. This one is taken at 10 millimeters. This shot is taken at 14 millimeters. And this shot is taken at 18 millimeters. So you can see there's a really big difference between the 10 millimeters being the widest on this lens and 18 millimeters, which is not the longest this lens goes, but it's usually the widest that most people have. Regarding usually if they're still using their kit lens and haven't purchased a wider lens. Like for me, my kit lens was an 1855, so 18 millimeters was the widest lens I had. So I mean, the difference is huge. Anyway, the lens, it does seem to flare. I have had it flare a couple times. You definitely need to use the lens hood at all times. This lens also, the sharpness, I wouldn't say it's one of the sharpest lenses I've ever seen. It's definitely not a soft lens. It gets a lot better once you stop it down to f8 or f11. Because I mean, usually when shooting landscapes, you use a tripod anyway. Well, I do, so stopping down that low is no problem for me. Just get a good cable release or a wireless remote. And the reason I purchased this lens is because it has a HSM motor, so I can get autofocus on both my cameras, both the D40X and the D200. The other alternatives to this are the Tokina 12-24. This lens runs $500. It's about the same price as the Tokina, which is around $500 as well. From reviews I've heard, the Tokina does have better build quality. It's a little better built. It's faster. It has a constant aperture of f4. It does not go as wide. It stops at 12 millimeters, while this one keeps going to 10, which is a little bit of a difference there. But the Tokina zooms all the way into 24 millimeters as this stops at 20. So the Sigma Tokina are usually choices that people go to when they can't afford the Nikon, or I guess for Canon, whatever Canon's pro wide-angle lens is. The Nikon 12-24 is about 2 times the price. It's $1,000 to around $900 street price, depending on where you get it. It has a probably better build quality. I hear it's sharper. Same 12-24 zoom range, constant aperture 4, so it's not that much faster. But people just say all around, you know, less distortion, less flaring, I guess, and aberration. But overall, you know, for my budget and what I needed the lens for, I picked up the Sigma 10-20 millimeter lens. Overall, I would rate this lens very well. It's my only third-party lens, and I love it to death. It's an awesome lens. The wide angle is so fun to play around with. I'd recommend this to anyone looking for a wide-angle lens who can't afford whatever brand wide-angle lens they have, like whether it be the Nikon 12-24 or 14-24, or Canon's 10-22 or 16-35. The 10-20 millimeter lens definitely does a great job, and overall I'd have to rate this 5 out of 5 stars. So anyone looking to pick up a wide-angle lens, this lens is definitely for you, especially if your camera does not have a motor in it and you want autofocus. Anyway, thanks for stopping by and listen to my review. Be sure to check back for more videos later.